Welcome to the Foster Your Passion podcast, where entrepreneurs, who are mostly women, share their passions, their lessons, and leave you feeling uplifted, motivated, and possibly even inspired to go and foster your own passion. I'm your host, Hayley Foster, and this is the Foster Your Passion podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Foster Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Hayley Foster, and I'm here today with the amazing Nina, who is going to fill your cup of joy for the next 30 minutes or so as we talk about her journey, her experiences, and all of the things that she does to fill that cup each and every day. She's also going to share with you some nuggets, so I can't wait to dive in. Nina, thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Hayley. What an honor to be able to share with this community that you have built up. The more and more I get to know about you and what you're about, the more and more I want to learn more, right? And so now I get to be a part of that and share my journey. So I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And I just love that every time I see you, which I've seen you multiple times now over the last few weeks, but on video or in person, you are always wearing these inspirational shirts. And I just want to know, is it because they make you feel better? What's the reasoning behind them?
Thank you for noticing. It really is on purpose because I believe words hold whatever weight we put on them. And so I choose for words to, yes, inspire me, to lead me into my day. You're going to find out in the next 30 minutes how much I love words. And so it just started happening. And I started to embrace it more, right? Because when we do embrace who we genuinely are and little ways, right? You're going to hear that a lot. It's about the little things that can make us be more of who we were designed and created to be. Why not embrace them? So yes, the words on the shirt matter.
I love it. And I feel like do you call them something? Because I'm going to call them Ninaisms, but I'm sure that is not the word that you use for them. But there's so many of them. What are your favorite top three? I know I'm throwing questions at you right now that we were not even prepared for, but all these things are coming to me right now that I just want people to know about you because you have these Ninaisms. What do you call you? You don't call them that.
Well, it's an honor that other people call it those kinds of things. So I feel completely blessed about that. I guess it's just these divine downloads that come to me and then I trust them, right? And it's so interesting you bring that up because there's actually 4 groups of words that I was using separately to inspire me. And then recently, they were brought all together as one power phrase. And the funny part about it is someone in my sphere who's known me for 15 years actually wrote a note underneath it when I posted it. When will this be a t-shirt?
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Okay, so what is it? You have to share.
Oh my gosh. So the full context, which I don't think will fit on a shirt. So instead I made a canvas, is breathe and believe with grace and ease through trust and surrender in the power of prayers and positivity.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. That is amazing.
Yeah, it really
that definitely needs to be a canvas. I mean, who doesn't want that on their wall? Yeah, a giant life size.
Exactly. So I did. It's what felt good. I think you know me enough to know what feels good, then I take action on it. And really those 4 concepts are truly ingrained in me and have been for several years. And so, yeah, I initially started putting a couple of them on shirts separately and on mugs separately, but now I see the bigger picture for sure.
I love it. Okay, so you said for several years. So take us through the Nina journey. Where were you before you started on this journey? And then how did you pivot into this cup of joy world?
Well, I do like to point out when there's not coincidences. And you and I met recently and had a powerful conversation around the 20th anniversary of September 11th. And so actually the journey that you see now did start 20 years ago, right after September 11th. And I was, at the time in corporate America, I had my two daughters who were ages 4 and 6, and I was doing my thing and doing what I do best. And other people were raising, my babies, and my husband also worked a ton. So you had these two go-getters working, all of the things. I knew my husband was never going to entertain, and I'm glad he didn't, the thought of changing careers. But I also knew after September 11th, because of the work he did, something was definitely going to change in our family. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do what I'm doing. The reasons weren't in alignment anymore. And so after several days of crying on the floor in my bedroom while my daughters were upstairs sleeping, I just made a choice, right? And there's so much power in a decision, right? And you'll learn a lot about me. And I like to put things out there. I like to marinate on them. I think it's part of my design. And yet there's nothing like the power of a decision. So in that moment, I made that decision, and I took my hobby of creating scrapbooks and built an empire. And I will call it an empire in my own right. And I built an incredible team, and I enjoyed all the perks. And it was great for my family, for how I showed up for my kids, how I showed up for my husband. I could go on and on about that. But that was my first journey into entrepreneurship. And I know you can probably relate to that.
I certainly can, because my journey was about 20 years ago as well. I think we're coming up on 18 or 19. But yeah, 20 years on the entrepreneurial path, just saying. And I had two little kids at home too. I got divorced and I wasn't seeing them as much as I wanted to. And they were so little. And I made a choice to choose happy. And that was my motto for a couple of years. After my official divorce, I made a choice that happiness is my number one priority. And if I'm not happy, the world around me doesn't work. And so similarly, I knew that after getting divorced, the other unhappy place for me was at the other company that I was a founder of. And I knew that it was like a baby to me for many years, but I knew that it was time to set myself and the child free. So I did. But yeah, similar paths, my friend.
Yeah, and again, we're not alone. You're not alone. If you're listening to this and you're like, wait a minute, there is something, this gnawingness maybe in your heart, and you're scared, right? Okay, good. You can change that energy, right? And so it was funny. I went to my husband to tell him this epiphany, and God bless that man and his support. And we are still married. And I still like him, which is cool.
Very important.
Right? And I was actually the one who wrote the bills and sent out, wrote the checks. And he's like, well, can we handle it? We just bought a house. We just bought a new car. And in the depths of my soul, not knowing how, but I knew we would, I said, yep, everything's good. We're going to be good. And I never looked back. I'm not saying it was easy, but it was a simple decision. Once I made that decision, there was no turning back. And I think there is something to be said about that too, right? Yeah. Of having that knowing and then going forward. Not to say there weren't highs and lows and all the things in entrepreneurship, but I knew that I wasn't going to go back to the life I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. Our universe is I just had this conversation yesterday with a group of women that I'm in a different group with. But I talked about, you can't change the past. It's written, right? It is written. What we have done, and it's done. And it should stay there. And the only thing that we can change is right now, right this second, and everything that's to come after. And so, we were talking about parenting and the hindsights of 2020, and thinking through, like, should I have done this differently? Should I have done this better? And, I kind of paused everyone and said, it doesn't matter. You did what you did. The question is, what can you do better going forward? Or what can you change going forward? And so I'm with you. I never looked back on corporate America. I never looked back on that life, or, I don't look back on my divorce and say, what if, or should I have? It's sort of like, that was that. We're moving on. This is the first day of the rest of our lives. Time to focus on that. So I love your story. And so how did the scrapbooking turn into the clarity work that you do?
Oh, so this is the other part of knowing your journey and trusting yourself. It's a big piece of it. And so as this industry grew and as things changed, that's the one thing we know for sure, change, right? And so we were a very simplistic organization. We had a simple system. And then digital cameras came around, and then, competition, which I love competition, but needless to say, the company was no longer in alignment with, what I believed in terms of, how to share this message. It just didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And so I said, all right, now what? And it's interesting, if I get a chance to ever tell everyone all of my story, it typically is when I'm still at a high, I make a shift. So, and it's usually, right, not the popular decision. People don't quite understand that, but it's what works for me. And so sometimes that might be you. You might say, well, why would I leave this? I have this, I have that, I have all this going for me. But again, if it's not, right? If it's not in alignment, oh my gosh, it's just going to be so much harder. I'm not saying it won't work. You may still get the results, but I was all about grace and ease. So
those are two great things to be about.
Yeah. So I dabbled in a few things. I'm not going to lie, but let's just jump to when I finally said, wait a minute, this is what I'm about. I have all this years of experience of training and development and of my own personal development and programs I was certified in because of other jobs that I had. What if I go out and now share that with the world? So I started my own training and development company that very quickly turned into doing coaching. And then 3 years into it, my mom just wore me down and I went and got certified through the John Maxwell organization. And I'm telling you this piece of the story because even though 2013 is where I started to make my shift, I would say probably not till 2016 is when I really was in alignment with the messages I was going to deliver. So again, I say to you, I stuck with it. I'm not saying it didn't feel good, but it seemed a little disjointed. So the clarity work that I get to do with my clients is the clarity work I did with myself. And so once I had that, now I wanted to share it with the world. And after I got that clarity, I was able to publish my second book, like in 24 hours, I was able to like put it together. Now it's a workbook. You have to do the work, but just the fact that, again, I had thought about it and thought about it. But once you have such clarity and confidence, you can't help but be committed to your next right step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Because similarly, again, I had written the outline for my first book, Foster Your Passion, and I hired a book coach. I was like, I really want to do this. Like, now is the time. I met this book coach. I came back. I spoke to a bunch of women that live locally, and I was like, let's write our books. and they were all in. We had this woman come here. We did an intensive weekend of like how to self-publish. And I said to her, like, I have my outline. And then I started to sit with my outline and I hated it. I was like, I won't even read this book. And it was because she clarified for me all of the things that I wanted to put out there into the world. And while my first book, it's sort of like, it's a memoir of kind of like my journey to fostering my own passion. I needed to go through that journey in order for me to write it. And then literally, I think it was 9 months later, I started my first 12-week program. And I created this workbook that you now have as like a real book, but I created it myself and gave everybody this book that had all of these amazing quotes in it and, you know, the empty journaling pages. And so I made little stickers and I put them on all the journaling pages. And then my husband said to me, why don't you just make this into like your own workbook? And I was like, oh my God, that's a great idea. And literally in like a week, I found like a designer to design all the quotes. I gave her all the things, and I found a book cover person. And I was like, all right, I'm done. So it literally took me like a month, kind of like you, to publish my workbook. And it was because I went through the 12-week journey, and without me going through that journey, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And so it was part of my first 12-week program was for me to publish my 12-week workbook.
I love that story. And for the record, y'all, that workbook is amazing. I've only just dived into it, but really beautiful, just aesthetically, right? And then when I started to look at the pages, I was like, oh, this is no joke. So thanks, Hayley.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, it is a workbook because you got to do the work. I think I said to you before we jumped on the call that it's one thing to have the workbook, but it's another thing to actually do the work. Right. And so it's, you know, you can say like, oh, I joined this 12-week program, but I didn't see results. And, you know, the question always is, well, did you do the work? You know, so you got to do the work to see the results, as we talked about on our call yesterday. So I'm super excited. And thank you for your kind words about my workbook. So I was very excited to get it done. And you know, one of the best things was getting my kids involved in that process, which is a whole nother story I'll share with you another time. But
I can't wait.
Okay, so here we are with Nina and your clarity work, and you know, your clarity that you help others sort of come up with. Like, give us like your top 3 tips to finding our clarity, which then leads us to living this life of joy.
So let's start with first understanding joy is an inside job. Joy is an inside job. And so
is that on a t-shirt, Nina? I hope so.
I think it needs to be. And I probably
definitely needs to be right now.
Right now, joy is an inside job. So just like you were describing your workbook, right? It takes the work. And so not a lot of people like this word. And they're probably like, how does that bring you joy? But I believe it's in the discipline that actually you can get the joy. And if I'm being completely transparent, I had been running from using the word discipline when I talk to others. And it was not in alignment. It was not in alignment until I started using that word and owning it. Did more people want to know about it? And I think you know that because when we were together with our group, right? So now that I'm owning, wait a minute, I have joy from certain disciplines because I've done the inner work. So that being said, I am going to ask you to get your thoughts out of your head. And I'm sure Hayley would agree. Write those suckers out. So just even doing brain dumps on the daily, whatever, not questioning it, not editing it, not anything, just let it out that can clear your energy. That can open up the inner work for joy because you've allowed it to be out of your head. When you keep it in your head, you have about 60,000 or more thoughts a day, and about 90% of them are the same thoughts as yesterday. And unfortunately, typically the thoughts we're having are not serving us. So tip one is to just let that out, right?
I love it. I love it. And that's how we started our weekend together in Nashville was, you had us get it all out. And what was great is that we got it all out and it allowed us to open ourselves up for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, in a way that we didn't even know what we were opening up. Right. And so so that's tip one. Even if you do nothing else, at some point in the day, it could be in the morning, it could be at night, it could be in the middle of the day, it could be all of those. Don't be afraid of putting pen to paper. And so along those same lines, then, of course, is now what are you going to feed back into your brain? So now we've let it out. What am I going to feed back in? And I, again, am typically going to recommend you do it in writing, but saying it is also good, or maybe doing both. And that would be now setting intentions for your day or your next right step, or now that you've brain dumped it out, what is the intention I want to set? And, or, right, both would be great. Then what are your power statements, or what are your I am statements, or what do you want to declare? So I have journaling prompts that actually are intention setters. So it's both. It's a yes and. So again, I'm describing to you my daily clarity system. Mm-hmm. And it's simple, but not always easy, right? Because it will take discipline to do these things.
Yes. Consistency, right, is, comes along with the discipline side of it 100%.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say that, a quick little share is when I was going through probably one of the hardest times in my life and getting divorced, I was doing a program with my rabbi called the Happiness Group. And we were running it because he's like, I do all these bereavement groups and mourning groups and, all of these groups that are, kind of Debbie Downer groups. He's like, I want to teach people how to bring more happiness into their lives. And so we started this thing called the Happiness Group. And during that time, we were focusing on gratitude was one of the biggest things that sort of led us into starting this happiness group. And he talked about a daily gratitude practice, which is not just spiritual, but it's in our Torah, like start your morning with gratitude. And so I started doing a morning gratitude reminder. I would set it in my phone, wake up every day, think of something you're grateful for. And it was that discipline and consistency that led me to now I wake up and the first thing I think is, what are 3 things I'm grateful for today? It could be the stupidest thing. Like, I'm just grateful to be able to look out my window and, see the beautiful fence that's up in my yard, even though my yard isn't finished yet. But, just little things that we are grateful for. Like, all they don't even have to be big. They could just be little tiny things, but starting with that practice sets the intention for your day. So I'm totally with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's actually a saying, I got to get it down right, but let's just say that is where joy comes from. When you actually appreciate what you have, then you're again, filling your cup more with the joy. And so when your cup is full of joy, it's hard to pour anything else into it. Now, it doesn't mean life, of course, is going to keep happening. One thing we know for sure, life keeps happening, right?
Yes.
It just does. And so we've talked about this actually in the Cup of Joy room. We want to celebrate, right? We want to celebrate you. And if you came because you're seeking joy, we want to talk about that. I believe joy and sorrow can coexist. And when you have that inner work done for the joy, when life happens, you can walk through it. It doesn't mean you're not going to feel, we want you to feel the feelings. Trust me. I'm all about feeling the feelings, but it's then how do we transition, with grace and ease, right? For the right energy to put out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say your cup of joy room, just for clarity purposes, for people that are not on Clubhouse, Nina does a 9 a.m. room called the Cup of Joy on Clubhouse. And it is powerful. I was in there this morning where that woman just was sobbing to you, thanking you for changing her life yesterday. I mean, the things that you're doing and the joy that you are bringing to people is truly a gift from above. So thank you.
No, thank you. I, God knew I needed that today. And so be just, if you're listening to this, always be open, right? Always be open, always be, I like to tell people, leave your I already know that at the door. I'm doing it as we speak, as I get to be a part of what Hayley does. I really come with that curiosity into life and openness. And there's always something for you in both, right? In the joy and in the sorrow, there is something for you if you have that openness to be observant, to hear it, to all of those things. And today was one of those days. And I trust you're going to have more of those, each and every one of you, as you look at your daily practices, as you look at one thing that maybe you could do differently. And maybe it's what we said, when your eyes wake up, don't pick up your phone. I say, today I am, and whatever word comes to my mouth, I'm like, that's what I am today, right? It's something joyful. I play a game of, I'm not going to pick my phone up for how long, right? Or if I do pick my phone up, it's to read a prayer, or it's to read an affirmation, or it's to bless somebody else, right? It's not to get caught up in all this other stuff. So again, my favorite thing to say, right? Little by little, a little will become a lot. So just pick one thing and have the discipline to keep doing it.
100%. And I say this to people in their businesses. There is no overnight success stories. You have to work years at your business for it to become an overnight success, and then one day you're like, wow, here I am. But, as something you said really resonated with me, and it was, we should always be open, right? There is so much education these days and knowledge at our fingertips. There are so many communities that we could find and connect ourselves with that it's endless, right? And so, coming into Nashville, similarly, like I came in and I left like, I know a lot of this stuff at the door, and I opened myself up to, I just want to absorb as much as I can in these 3 days from these amazing women. And it was beautiful. And it was because I opened myself up to that. And, when I met my husband, I remember feeling like my cup is full right now. And I had finished, I think my rabbi had actually given me a cup that said, you filled my cup with blessings, as sort of like a thank you for being a part of this group. And I forget what the Hebrew translation is of it, but it's along those lines. Like my cup, thank you for filling my cup. And he gave us these little cups. But I remember saying to my friends, I'm good. Like if I'm single and I'm just meant to be with my girls and to live this life that I have right now, I'm good. And I was done. I guess that was me basically saying like, I'm ready for whatever gets thrown my way. And literally the next day I met Brian. And when people say to me like, how long did it take? How did you do it? I said, I had to feel good for me first. I had to work on me and get myself to a point of happiness and joy because they're different, you know. I know, you know, but but I had to get there before I could accept anyone else in my life. And I talk to a lot of women getting divorced and share that with them because that's what it's really about.
So there is a quote in the Daily Clarity playbook, we'll call it, journal, whatever you want to call it. And the quote is, right before you turn the page to start your first brain dump, is it's all about the joy. And the joy stands for the journey of you.
Is that a t-shirt?
Yeah. I got to get with Monica Allen for all these t-shirts, right?
All right. You definitely need to get with Monica Allen. We need a t-shirt line for sure. For sure. Oh, my goodness. There's so many Ninaisms. I can't take it. When we transcribe this episode, I'm going to have a whole list at the bottom of all the Ninaisms.
I love it. I love it. Such a joy. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Is there a number 3?
So a number 3, I'm going to go back to one of the first parts of clarity because you said give tips for clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you drinking enough water, people? I know you're probably laughing at me right now, but no, I promise you. Although water was always my drink of choice, I was challenged one day, right? Because I have an open mind, an open heart, and I don't already know that. And when I was challenged to actually mark down the amount of water I drink, I was far below what is required. And making that shift, not that it was easy, but it's a simple shift. Wowza. The benefits of water go far beyond your wildest dreams. And one of them is clarity, your creativity, your health, your skin, your hair, your nails. Like I could go on and on. It's like all wellness. And you might be listening to this podcast going, is this lady crazy? Or I've already heard that. Well, here's your challenge. Are you truly disciplined to it? And I know people were watching me. And I think they know how much water I drink now. And I believe some women are challenging themselves already going, I'm not drinking enough water.
So everyone that's listening, grab your cup and take a sip because it's scientific. It's not hokey. It's not like drink your water. No, water creates clarity. Like it clears your brain and flushes your system. And my father-in-law has Alzheimer's and dementia. And when he is not drinking water, he is confused. And we saw this. And it was almost like we couldn't believe it, but we knew, but we couldn't believe it. The clarity that happened when we handed him a bottle of water and he started drinking it because he hadn't drank anything all day and he was out of sorts. It was a different person. And so there is scientific evidence. If you don't believe Nina and you don't believe me, Google it. Ask the Google machine, right? Google it. How does water help me, right? And you will see that there are a tremendous amount of benefits to drinking water. And we've started putting a little bit of pink Himalayan sea salt in our water because you need to add some sodium to it in order for it to do all the things it needs to do. I mean, you could actually drink too much water and dehydrate yourself if you're not adding a little bit of electrolytes or sodium to it. So, little tip.
And just like that, I learned something new and I'm going to start doing it. Thank you, Hayley.
You're welcome. Good pink Himalayan sea salt. I just want to preface it with that. Good pink Himalayan sea salt. Just a little tiny bit in your water goes a long, long way.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to do it right now.
Excellent. All right, Nina. So anything you want to throw out there before we say goodbye to our listeners?
You know, I think we sometimes struggle with taking care of ourselves because we want to take care of everyone else and everything else first. And I'm here to let you know that I learned the hard way, and I don't want you to learn that the hard way. It doesn't take a lot, but definitely taking care of you. And it can be just those simple steps: drinking more water, writing out your thoughts and not thinking about them, and then replacing them with thoughts that motivate you and inspire you and make you feel good. Those little things will go a long way. So it's so important to remain focused on yourself, not in a way that is selfish, in a way that elevates you to the best version of yourself. You're still going to serve. You're still going to give to others. You still want to give to your business like you never did before. All the things, those multiple hats, don't have to go away if you don't want them to. But you can wear them better, I think, if you first take care of you.
I love it. I love it. I love you. You're amazing. Thank you. This was great. Okay, where can people get your daily clarity journal?
Oh, so I spend and hang out time in Instagram. So come follow me over on Instagram. And typically in my link in bio, there will be a link to grab it. So,
and we will also put it in the show notes.
Yes. So
the link will go in the show notes.
It's definitely not going away. If anything, it's gaining momentum. So let us know if you pick it up and what you think about it.
Awesome. Nina, thank you so much for filling all of our cups with some joy today and teaching us how to fill them with even more joy tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So thank you. I appreciate you and your time today.
Thank you for having me, Hayley. It was an honor.
Absolutely. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time on the Foster Your Passion podcast. We're out. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Hayley Foster, and I hope you'll join me next time for more inspiring women who are fostering their passions each and every day. Please subscribe wherever you download your podcast and follow us on social media at Fostering 101.